Today, we're going to explore a division algorithm that will help us divide even more quickly and efficiently, with practice, of course. And yes, as usual, I'm going to ask you to pause the video and discuss what you remember about these three terms: dividend, divisor, and quotient. The dividend is the amount that you would like to divide fairly and evenly. The divisor is the number of even and fair groups that you are trying to make, and the quotient is what we are trying to figure out: the amount of the dividend that will be in each even and fair group. So far, we have practiced two ways of dividing evenly and fairly. One where you use real materials, and one using numerals. Pause the video and discuss what might be the advantages and disadvantages of each approach. Both methods work for sure. When you use real materials, you have to spend time counting out the dividend and then sharing out portions carefully. This takes time and enough real materials. With numerals, you don't have to do as much counting, but you do need to keep track of the quotient so far, the amount left over, and the point where you are sure that you can't divide anymore. This requires that you feel very comfortable adding or multiplying and subtracting. The method we're going to explore today is called the partial quotients method. It uses a division bracket that has this long vertical line down the right side, like this. It's a good next step because it's almost exactly like the dividing that we've done so far. It just uses one less step to make the process faster. Here's how it works. We're going to keep track of the quotient so far over here on the right, and the amount left over here under the division bracket. Let's take a look at the question 42 divided into 4 equal and fair groups. First, let's record the divisor to the left of the bracket and then the dividend right underneath. When you use this method, you don't draw out your groups. We're going to skip that step. You just need to keep in mind the number that you are working with, in this case 4, and figure out a reasonable part of the dividend that you would put into each of these 4 groups. Skipping the drawing step will save you some time if you're ready. Now, we thought that 10 would be a reasonable quotient so far. The next step is to figure out how much of the dividend is left over. What are your thoughts? Pause and discuss. Before we commit to an actual number left over, I'm going to remind you that we didn't just use 10 of our dividend. We used 4 groups of 10. Our quotient so far is just one of those groups. 4 groups of 10? Well, that's just 4 times 10, or 40. And because we want to figure out how much of the dividend is left over, we're going to subtract that 40 from the dividend, and that leaves us with 2. Now that we know we have 2 left over, we have to decide if we can divide it further or if we are going to stop. Now, I'm going to stop for today. So that means when you divide 42 into 4 equal and fair groups, you end up with 10 in each group. Let's try another one. This time, let's see how many are in each of these 5 groups when we split 66 evenly and fairly. Again, without drawing out 5 groups, I think it would work to put 10 in each. How much of the dividend might be left? Pause and discuss. Again, a quick reminder. When we picked 10 as our quotient so far, that's really not just plain old 10. That's 5 groups of 10, or 5 times 10 equals 50. So, how many are left? Subtract and find out. Right, 16 left. We can easily keep dividing. How about another 2? How many would be left then? When we draw it out, we see that we ended up sharing out 5 groups of 2, and that is 5 times 2 gives us 10. That's another 10 of our dividend shared out, leaving us now with 6. We can keep going. Let's see now. How about 1 more each for our quotient? 1 more in each of our groups. That's 5 times 1 is 5, leaving us with 1 remaining. And I think that's a pretty good place for us to stop. Now we have to think, what is our total quotient? When we add up all the bits, we see that our quotient is 13, and we have a remainder of 1. Okay, one last example before you practice on your own. Let's split 78 into 3 equal and fair groups. I'd like your thoughts. What number might we start with for our quotient? Pause and discuss. We decided to go big this time. We were pretty sure that we could start with 20 in each group. How many will be left? Pause and discuss. When we picked 20, we knew that meant 20 in each of our 3 groups. 3 times 20, that's 60. 78, take away the 60 that we used, leaves us with 18. Okay, keep dividing. Let's try 6 for our quotient. 3 groups of 6, or 3 times 6, gives us 18. 18, take away 18, of course, leaves us with, perfect. We shared the entire dividend. So our quotient is 26 with a remainder of 0. Now it's your turn. Practice the partial quotients method using these 3 examples. You are more than welcome to draw out your groups if it helps, although it does save a lot of time if you can skip this step. Plus, if it feels a little awkward or confusing at the start, remember that that is how many things feel when they're new. The more that you practice, the easier this algorithm becomes. And don't forget, snap a picture of all your hard work to share with your teacher. Oh, and one more thing. If the numbers in these practice examples are not quite right, change them so they're exactly the right challenge level for you.